Playboi Carti. Do I need to say anything else about this man? Jordan Terrell Carter, known by his stage name Playboi Carti, is an Atlanta rapper first creating music all the way back in 2009 at just the age of 14 or 13. His birth year is still unknown, and has since become one of the most influential figures in modern hip-hop and responsible for creating a new genre in hip-hop called rage. However, Carti has recently become known to be a big ol' liar when it comes to releasing music, or even anything in general. After the release of Whole Lotta Red in December 2020, which itself had a messy rollout, Carti promised to release an album in March 2021. However, this would lead into 4 years of false promises, multiple scrapped albums, but finally, on March 14, 2025, Playboi Carti would release his long-awaited album called Music. After this release, Carti began teasing another album called Baby Boy, which hasn't been released yet, but Carti promises it'll be released before the end of 2025. I want to take a look through all of Carti's albums that either never dropped or have become lost to time, so join me as we do so. This is the Playboi Carti Lost Albums. Also, just a side note, I will most likely get some things wrong in the video, so let me know what I got wrong, and also big thanks to the Playboi Carti tracker for most of the information. On September 19th, 2010, Carti would announce that he's releasing his possibly first ever mixtape called Aviation Class. This was around the time when Carti wasn't going by Playboi Carti, but JC, which was just his initials. And an old classmate revealed that Carti made his music in the school studio in after-class activities, and a video was even uploaded around this era called Jordan Acting Stupid, which Carti is seemingly attempting to erase from the internet. I wonder why. Carti would release a couple of singles 5 months after the announcement of the mixtape. However, Carti would never drop the mixtape. No songs have ever been archived from this era, except for a freestyle recorded in the Jordan Acting Stupid video, where he calls someone named Lil Che a bitch. And according to an old classmate of Carti, he performed an unknown song in a school talent show. He was heard saying Florida Boy in the song, so it's widely believed Florida Boy is the name of the song. On April 10th, 2011, Carti would change his name from JC to Sir Cartier, and Aviation Class would eventually be morphed into a new mixtape called Killing Me Softly, and would tease the mixtape on April 27th, 2011. Nothing much is really known about this project, except for one supposed song on the album called Room for the Ladies, which was teased on July 18th, 2011, but it's unknown if this was ever released. The image used in the cover art for the mixtape would eventually be used in a 2018 Nas album, Nasir, released 7 years after Killing Me Softly. In the middle of 2011, Killing Me Softly would eventually morph again into a new mixtape called The High Chronicles. The High Chronicles would be released on November 5th, 2011 on DatPiff, Lime Links, and Mixtape Factory. However, the album has since become lost media, except for 2 versions of a song called Living Reckless, along with a cover of the song and cover art for another song called Carolina Blue. After the release of The High Chronicles, Carti began promoting a new album in the middle of 2012 called Kream. Only one song from this project was ever released called Steez, produced by T-DZ, and another song supposedly from the album called Blue Crystals, which was released but is now lost media. The OG file for Steez was leaked in 2021 and was when people found out there exists a whole project called Kream. However, it's unknown what the rest of the songs were on the album, and it's speculated that Kream eventually turned into another mixtape called Young Misfit, which was officially released on November 11, 2012. Sensation was another mixtape worked on in 2013 after the release of Young Misfit. However, it's likely that the project was scrapped in October, but it's still unknown whether it was released or not. A lot of the songs from the album were released. The following are 10K, A Couple Thousands for the Hook, For My Set, Terror, This Cash, featuring Colty, H2O, Zombies, and Oucha, which was released along with a music video. It was meant to be the leading single for Sensation. Some songs from the project were leaked, with one notable song called So Cold, featuring A$AP Rocky as background vocals, making this likely the first time Playboi Carti and A$AP Rocky collaborated on a song. After this project, Carti would change his name from Sir Cartier to the iconic name Playboi Carti. Playboi Carti would begin getting some steam in the music industry, and in early 2014 signed to the Awful Records label and released an EP called Death in Tune on May 13, 2015. Before the release of this EP, Ian Connor, a model who was apparently a sexual predator, I don't know much about that, announced a new Playboi Carti mixtape on April 13th called Cash Carti the Mixtape. This was also around the time when Carti began switching up his style and sound after releasing his EP, and it's one of his many eras in his entire career, and this era was dubbed the Chucky era from the amount of singles he's released on SoundCloud with Chucky as the cover art. Because Carti decided to switch up his sound and style, the Cash Carti mixtape failed to deliver on January 2nd, 2016, and his style and sound would once again switch up after meeting with famous rappers. On September 9th, 2016, Carti would be signed to Interscope and AWGE, a label by A$AP Rocky, and decided to rework the Cash Carti mixtape. The mixtape would eventually be reworked into Playboi Carti's self-titled album, released on April 14th, 2017. Around 2015, Playboi Carti and Digital Nas began work on a collab project together, as mentioned by Digital Nas. However, only one song was ever released from this era, called Run It, on December 25th, 2015 on SoundCloud, featuring Lil Yachty, but the project was most likely scrapped in 2017, and nothing much else is known about it. No Pressure is another obscure Playboi Carti project, a collab album with Rich the Kid that started in early 2016. On October 31st, 2017, Rich the Kid hosted a Reddit AMA, and a fan asked if he has any unreleased music with Playboi Carti, to which he responded saying they have a whole mixtape they made together. The mixtape was eventually scrapped for unknown reasons, and some of the songs that came from this mixtape were either used by Rich the Kid or artists featured on the album. Benjamin Workman, better known as TrapMoneyBenny, is a music producer from Cleveland, Ohio, who has worked with big artists like Chief Keef, Chance the Rapper, Gucci Mane, Rich the Kid, Lil Yachty, and some more. TrapMoneyBenny would collab with Playboi Carti in late 2015 and would begin work on an untitled mixtape, but it would unfortunately be scrapped when Carti went to focus on a self-titled mixtape at the time in early 2017. Carti and TrapMoneyBenny would never mention this mixtape to the public and would go forgotten until September 30th, 2023, when a person named Plankton would reveal information about the album, along with a snippet for a song called The Dancer, which would leak in its entirety after a group buy. Some leakers would reveal that they are in possession of the entire mixtape and confirm the mixtape has a total of 9 songs. This is probably the most well-known unreleased album, not only from Playboi Carti, but it's a collab with none other than Lil Uzi Vert. Playboi Carti and Lil Uzi Vert both began getting some major traction around the same time in the mid-2010s, and the pair first met each other in 2015 in the backstage of a Post Malone concert. The two then started collaborating on music together, and according to Carti in a 2018 interview, revealed that they have around 100 unreleased songs together.
How many records do y'all have together that we haven't heard?
Like 100.
100?
Yeah.
Jesus.
We've been recording since like 2015, you know what I'm saying?
Carti is featured on a song called Of Course We Ghetto Flowers from Uzi's 2016 album, The Perfect Love Tape, and Uzi is featured on 2 songs, Woke Up Like This and Lookin' on Carti's self-titled mixtape from 2017, and there are many other songs that featured the two working together. After the release of Carti's 2017 mixtape, Carti would announce on Snapchat and Twitter that the two would be collaborating on an album together called 1629. The name is in reference to both the rapper's hometown neighborhoods. Uzi lived on the 1600 block in North Philadelphia, and Carti lived on the 2900 block in Atlanta. In October, the duo would announce that they would be going on tour to promote the album. However, just days after this announcement, Uzi would opt out and take to Twitter to say that he needs to quote, focus. According to Uzi, on an Aiden Ross stream from 2022, the two recorded approximately 40 songs for the album in London, but the files for the song have become lost. On February 20th, 2018, one of the producers for the album, DP Beats, released a song called Bankroll onto SoundCloud following its leak earlier in that month. The song would later show up on DP Beats' album called DP on the Beat Volume 3 as the 7th track on August 17th, 2018. A couple songs from the album would be released, but of course not the album itself, and it seemed like at this point the album had been long scrapped, with no official cover art, tracklist, or any marketing plan for the album, and rumors of the two having a falling out would begin by late 2019. However, Uzi would state that they were on good terms, but Uzi decided to take a different route. The duo would rekindle in 2021 during sessions for Uzi's upcoming album, Pink Tape, and Carti's album he was working on at the time, Narcissist, which I'll talk about later. Uzi would take to Twitter to announce 1629 once again on August 23rd, 2021, but of course nothing much came from this. It seemed that the album would be worked on and off with many different versions of the album since it's announced in 2018, and in March 2023, Uzi would make an Instagram story tagging Carti and giving a caption saying, "Me and my love about to take over the world," but nothing came out of this. The duo worked together as recently as March of this year when Carti released his long-anticipated album, Music, featuring Uzi on 2 tracks. There are a lot of different versions of Whole Lotta Red, released on December 25th, 2020. Believe it or not, Whole Lotta Red first started as a sequel album to Die Lit, released on May 11th, 2018, with the simple name Die Lit 2. Just like what the name suggests, this version of Whole Lotta Red had an extremely similar vibe to Die Lit, rapping over cloud trap beats with production from Pierre Bourne, the main producer for Die Lit. Carti first teased Die Lit 2 on June 3rd, 2018, while previewing a song called Buffy the Body in a live stream on a private Instagram account. The name change would come around in August 2018 when Carti was discussing the album in an interview, referring to it as Whole Lotta Red instead of Die Lit 2. In January 2019, Carti began experimenting with his vocals, which is where the iconic baby voice comes from, and the most well-known leaked song, Pissy Pamper, comes from this era. On July 29th, 2019, Carti said he'll be dropping the album in the next 60 days. However, the day came and no album was released, and the second era of Whole Lotta Red would begin. This era of Whole Lotta Red is very different compared to the first version, with Carti experimenting more with his baby voice, now over heavily synth beats and hard trap, along with a major transformation to his looks, dyeing his hair blonde, changing his hairstyle, and changing his fashion. Sessions for Whole Lotta Red version 2 started in October 2019 after Carti failed to release Whole Lotta Red version 1. On April 16, 2020, Carti would release a single in promotion for the album called At Me. However, the single received mixed responses, causing Carti to scrap this entire album and rework it. Progress was being made on this album until a close friend of Carti's, Big Sosa, would tragically be murdered on June 28, 2020, allegedly by a rapper named Ola Run. This death would hit Carti deeply and make him go into a hiatus and halt progress on the album. Carti would return to social media in October 2020 to announce Whole Lotta Red with once again a new sound for the album with a more somber and relaxed tone. Carti also went more in depth with his lyrics that he usually does, talking about his drug addiction after the death of Big Sosa, like I Love You, I Hate You, and making the now iconic song Stop Breathing, talking about Big Sosa and dissing Ola Run on the song. Due to the amount of hate received for the baby voice, Carti explored a more aggressive vocal style, which people called his raspy voice. The album would change once again when Kanye West became an executive producer for the album in November 2020, changing the sound into a more aggressive punk rock feel, and the album would finally be released on December 25th, 2020, and was met with at first a negative response, but slowly became loved by fans and critics for its experimentation and new sound. In 2019, Playboi Carti and Trippie Redd were working on an EP called We Don't Dial 911. First mention of this EP was from Trippie Redd when he responded to a fan asking for an EP collab with Carti, to which he said sooner than later, and posted the possible cover art for the EP. Unfortunately, not much else is known about this EP, other than that the EP was most likely scrapped in late 2019 and some of the songs on the EP were given to smaller artists. A day after releasing Whole Lotta Red, Carti would go onto Twitter to ask his fans what they want on the deluxe, making this the first time Carti had ever planned for a deluxe release on any album. Many of the songs considered for the album were well-known leaks with newly created tracks for the deluxe, and the album underwent major changes, including name changes, mixing, different track lists, and it's even speculated that there's different versions of the album. In early 2021, Carti would announce that the deluxe would be released in spring of 2021, but unfortunately, Carti went quiet on 80 updates for the deluxe, eventually shelving the project, and it's speculated that the reason for this is because Carti's label did not allow him to release the deluxe. After shelving the deluxe, Carti would announce on Instagram that he's working on a new album on March 10th, 2021. It would later be revealed that the new name for this album is called Narcissist. On August 23rd, 2021, Carti would announce his new album, Narcissist, and planned to release it on September 13th on his birthday, and would announce a tour with the same name. Despite the album having a producer lineup like Richie Soof, Filthy, Art Dealer, and more, the album would never release due to sample clearance, but some songs were leaked from the album, revealing its new sound sounding too much like Future. The tour would eventually be renamed to King Vamp, and the only thing to drop during this era was a $5,000 helmet, but no song. This era could be argued that Carti was working on this now released album, Music, but according to some sources, it seems like Carti might have been working on a whole different album during this time. In April 2022, Carti would announce his new album called Music in an XXL interview, and a lead single for the album was meant to be released called Wicked that was recorded in March of that year, but would ultimately never drop on the planned release date due to it leaking 3 weeks earlier. According to DJ Swamp Izzo, Carti had a few names in mind for the album, despite stating the name was Music. 25 tracks were supposedly considered for the project and hinted that it would be released in April or May, but this would never happen. On December 24th, 2022, Carti would announce a new album followed by the cover art for the album. And on the 2-year anniversary of Whole Lotta Red, Carti would tweet for the first time in a while announcing new music. DJ Academics would reveal that the album would drop in January 2023, but this would never happen due to Carti being arrested with aggravated assault after allegedly choking his pregnant girlfriend, was booked for the incident on December 29th, and was released on a $100,000 bond. DJ Swamp Izzo would reveal the album was done on February 21st, 2023, and that the title and cover would be revealed, but this never happened. On March 4th, Carti would perform at the Rolling Loud show and preview a new song for the album called Rockstar, which according to Filthy was made 15 minutes before the show. A bunch of Carti songs would leak online on March 26th, and due to this, Filthy, who was the executive producer for the album, would confirm that the album was basically scrapped due to leaks on April 27th. After failing to release the album between April and May, the rollout for the album would eventually die out, and the project was likely shelved at this time, but about 2 years later, Carti would finally release his longly anticipated album, Music, on March 14th, 2025, and after this release, DJ Swamp Izzo would reveal that Carti finished an entirely different project at the end of 2022, but this confirms that there was a whole other project worked on in 2022, but it's unknown what the name or cover for this project was. 004KT is a collab album with Playboi Carti and rapper NBA Youngboy that was first announced on June 15th, 2023 through Carti's Instagram story when Carti posted a picture showing NBA Youngboy wearing an opium chain after being gifted to it by Carti. But this album was teased back in February of the same year by DJ Swamp Izzo when he claimed that the tape between the two is almost finished.
Swamp Izzo, NBA Youngboy's next.
It's gonna be hard.
Let me give you a world premiere right now.
We're gonna have to drop this. We're gonna have to put this out.
Swamp Izzo, Playboi Carti album is done.
Oh!
I'm gonna get that to world premiere. Swamp Izzo and Playboi Carti's album is done.
Oh! It's
One more time. Swamp Izzo.
Drop another song!
Filthy would also tweet around the same time the words 004KT, the 00 meaning opium, and 4KT standing for NBA Youngboy's label. The project was near to being finished until on April 16th, 2024, when NBA Youngboy's home was raided by federal agents in Utah and arrested Youngboy for being a part of a large drug ring and faced over 40 charges like forgery, identity fraud, possession of a dangerous weapon, and more. NBA Youngboy would plead guilty to most of the charges in November, would be ordered to pay a $25,000 fine, and was sentenced to 23 months in prison. But on March 24th, 2025, NBA Youngboy would be released from prison and was put on probation. After NBA Youngboy's release, Carti would once again post a picture of NBA Youngboy wearing the opium chain onto his story again. No new updates would come out, but on May 20th would again post a picture of NBA Youngboy wearing the chain, and a day later, Carti released a song featuring NBA Youngboy onto his opium Instagram account called Alive. However, the song would be deleted 2 days later due to some controversy of the song being stolen from Kanye West, with Carti responding that it was always his song and dissing Ye. It's unknown what the current status of 004KT is, but it was most likely scrapped after NBA Youngboy got arrested, and no further updates on the album have come out since then. Playboi Carti and Ye have been longtime collaborators and friends, tracing all the way back to 2016 or 2017 when they first linked up, and they have since been working on music together, with Ye having a big influence on Carti's music. Ye would be the executive producer for Carti's 2020 album Whole Lotta Red, and was even featured on a song from the album called Go to the Moon. According to Kid Cudi, who was also featured on the album and was a longtime friend with Ye, Carti gave credit to Ye for bringing his vision to life with the rage rap music. The two would reunite once again for Ye's Donda, with Carti appearing on the track Off the Grid with 5 Yo Foreign, which hit number 10 on the Billboard Top 100 and even went platinum. Their last team-up would be on Ye's 2024 collab album with Ty Dolla $ign Vultures, having the biggest influence on Carti yet. Carti would make some changes to his upcoming album at the time, Music, due to Ye's influence, and even delayed Music because of Ye. On March 11th, 2025, Ye would tease what looks to be the cover for an unknown album with Carti. However, 4 days later, Ye would post a picture again, but with more context, saying the project name was called Carti Ye, but was cancelled because Ye wasn't featured on Carti's 2025 album, Music, which was released a day before this Twitter post. After this, Playboi Carti and Ye would have a public argument with each other, mostly on Ye's side. Nothing has been leaked from this collab project, nor is there anything else known about this project, like when this was made, who's featured, etc. This last album isn't an unreleased or lost album, but an ongoing album called Baby Boy. The project was first teased back in 2023 in the FaceTime call when Carti said he planned to drop 2 albums, Music and Baby Boy. After the release of Music, Carti would tease Baby Boy multiple times, releasing some music onto Instagram, and have alluded to the project dropping before the end of 2025.